Oh, it's John Black, super chemist. It's a video by itself, but it's kind of a part two video from the first video is Marxist Communism, talking about that book, Marxist Communism. There's a part two to that book, though, called Critical Legal Studies, and then a part three called Critical Race Theory. We're on part two called Critical Legal Studies, and I looked it up. The Marxist Communism, I think, was made about 1840. The critical legal studies was in the 70s, and the critical race theory was in the 90s. So what is critical legal studies? Why is it? Why do I think it's a part two of Marxist communism? Why do I think it's a communist book? Because the author was a self-proclaimed lifelong communist. He said it himself. In the book says it that it's communist. The book and the author both say that this is a part two. And the reason why it's written, they had to explain why capitalism in the United States didn't fall. Why didn't it fall to communism? Remember, Marxist Communism, the first book, if you watch my video, they say that it's inevitable, that there's an evolutionary path for societies, just like an animal it evolves. And each level of evolution, is inevitable. You can't stop them, and it's going to all the way up. The levels go all the way up to the capitalism, and then to communism. But the question was, why did capitalism last so long in the United States? When you figure this is like 200 years later that they're writing this critical legal studies after the United States has already been existed for 200 years. Well, why didn't it fall? That was the so this guy, he's some kind of, my memory serves me right, he's some kind of college professor, a black guy, a communist, probably a Democrat, obviously. He's not going to be a Republican. And he wrote this book to explain. And what he said this is where the oppressor and the oppressed comes in. The worker's the oppressor, and the rich, the poor worker is the the oppressed, and the rich business owner is the oppressor, right? And the book is actually pretty good, man. It's taught in colleges right now. It has been for a long time because it brings up a lot of legal points where it does show oppression. You know what I mean? But just because there's an oppression in your government, I mean, you stop the oppression. You don't just turn to communism. Every government's going to have whatever. You stamp it out as it tries to form. You try to stamp it out. Any oppression or whatever. What's funny is because of this book, a lot of legal cases were taken to court and a lot of things were changed. So this book really changed, our laws so that they won't be oppressive. You know what I mean? And they looked around for all of them, so they made sure that I'm sure they didn't get every one of them, but they stamped out a lot of it. Okay. But anyways, so it has a lot of good points in it. It really does. But this is the 2025 or whatever. The book was written in the 70s, right after the civil rights thing, and you know what I mean. So saying, and when it was written in the 70s, they were talking about problems from like the 40s and the 30s and before. Oh wait, no, that's what's critical. Forget that. That was about critical race theory. But anyways, he has this oppressor and oppressed person, right? They do have a lot of points, like I said. But what he says in this second book is that remember I said cultural hegemony is the deep state that propagandizes everything and makes their society normalized. Even if you're in a dictatorship, they'll normalize it. You know what I mean? With stuff, newspapers, churches, police, government, everything. That's the cultural hegemony. Just the brainwashing part of the deep state. He says that it's so strong, though, in the United States, right? This hegemony, this cultural hegemony, it is so ingrained like never before because of, you know, in the 1900s you started having radios, and before that we had newspapers, and you know, more of an easy way to brainwash people. You know what I mean? To enforce the brainwashing, and they intertwined everything, like every little thing, you know, is intertwined into this cultural hegemony that deals with oppression or being oppressed. And the biggest lie of this cultural hegemony is that a commoner can, through meritocracy, you know, by merit, move up to a higher class, you know, an economic class, all the way to the top if he works hard enough. And that's a lie, he's saying. But it's the biggest lie that, because you can see examples. The cultural hegemony itself will promote commoners here and there to prove that, you know, it's like having a lottery once in a while and someone wins once a week. And you're like, look, see, everyone can, you know, everyone has a chance. See that democracy works. But this is a lie. They only just pick, you know, puppets here and there to whatever, or they're related and you don't know they're related to the puppet masters. And they're the ones who climb up and everyone thinks that, you know, democracy is great, but it's a lie. Okay? And because this is so intertwined and the brainwashing and the hegemony is so horrible. See, this is where activism comes in. This is where the activist has started now. Before this, it was common practice for communists to teach communism and try to get followers and build up their followers, right? Now, this is where the activist is born, okay? Here he states, okay, it doesn't really take off until CRT, the third part, but this is where the seed is planted, okay? He says because it is so intertwined. I forget. I totally lost my train of thought. Oh, this is where the activism is. This is where they start pushing the, you know, before it was you find a follower, build up your follower base. Now it is you should be an activist. Now how does that change things? Because an activist goes out and bullies and pushes, and he doesn't try to get other followers, he tries to get other activists. So now, instead of having 10 followers, you got 10 activists plus the original activist. You know what I mean? Actually going out and protesting and, you know, that kind of thing. This is where the, you know, this is part of the deep state plan of the United States. They realized that to get this, because their new religion was the woke religion, the communist religion, the LGBT religion, right? How are they going to get it to take off? How are they going to seed it? Again, I lost my train of thought. Oh, the activist thing. How are they going to seed it? They're going to get these, they're going to, activist. You got to get activist. Okay? Anyways, so they said that the whole reason why communism didn't overtake the United States was because the cultural hegemony was so intertwined and so strong and so resilient than any other society ever before, and therefore it will fall sooner or later because they're so oppressed, but it will take time. But this is the whole thing. Remember in the first book, Marxist Communism, that I talked about in the last video, right? What did I say? And the same ideology is passed over to the second book, but it's amplified now, okay? Because they want an activist. They want you to know, they want you to understand, because remember, let's go over what it used to say. It is your duty, Okay, there's only two ways to move up a level in societal evolution. One, you must dismantle and destroy every aspect of society, all the way down to the way they think and talk. Step two, and then, and only then, because you can't go to step two until you complete step one, destroy everything. Step two, then you can build back better with a more fair society, okay? And it's your duty to dismantle and destroy every aspect of society. And if you are not actively trying to destroy and dismantle every aspect of society, then you're part of the cultural hegemony, and you need to be dismantled and destroyed. These aspects were still taught, but now they're amplified. They're saying, you know, all the other societies, the cultural hegemony was not as strong and intertwined as it is in the United States democracy. So you really, like, you have to you have to do more than dismantle and destroy society. You have to get out there. Every person, every human being that is not, part of the active movement, is not an activist, is an enemy to the state. They need to be killed. They need to be taken down, man. You know what I mean? Everything was amplified, that it was your duty, that humanity itself is at stake here. And if you don't try to save humanity, you know, everyone knows the spiel. It's the same thing with the green stuff. If you don't save humanity, then you're an enemy. We have to kill you. You know what I mean? It's the same thing, right? But it was amplified big time now. Amplified big time. Let me see where I'm at here. Okay, well, that's how much time do I have left? Oh. So that's pretty much it on the part 2. And then we'll get into part 3. And like I said, I didn't bring up all the stuff that they have in here about, because they do have some good points about how we are oppressed, how the worker is oppressed, you know what I mean? It's great for legal work, you know what I mean, if you're going to sue somebody or something like that. But like I said, this stuff, this oppression just from workers, you know, no white, black thing, just workers and the business owner, a lot of it's been stamped out. One thing that hasn't been stamped out is the fact that, you know, back in the day, a worker made, say, $10,000, and the guy who owned the company might have made $50,000, $100,000, something like that. You know what I mean? 5-10 times as much. Now, and when I say owner, I mean either the owner or the, you know, the board of directors or whatever. You know what I mean? It depends on how big your company is. But now, instead of it being like a 1-to-5 or 1-to-10 ratio, now the owner of the business makes $1 million a year. You know what I mean? While the workers still make $10,000 a year. You know what I mean? And obviously, they're going to make more than $10,000. I'm using ratios. You can see the ratio difference, right? That's what I'm talking about. The ratio used to be 1-to-5 or 1-to-10. Now it's 1-to-10 million. You know what I mean? That's oppression. Okay, that needs to stop. All right, really, seriously. Workers are such idiots. But anyways, you can see how these books are both, they say they're communist. They're not trying to hide it, you know what I mean? They're saying that you should destroy every aspect. That's why they change all the words and stuff like that. They're always trying to, change the definitions of words because they want you to think different. Because that's what the cultural hegemony does, right? They want to control how you think. You know, you used to think a man and a woman were different. They want you to think a man and a woman is the same. That's an example of the cultural hegemony. Everything that they do to try to get us and convince us that men and women are exactly the same. Anything that does that is part of the cultural. That's a perfect example of cultural hegemony. Okay. And like I said in the last video, you know, these are some words that are constantly used in these books. These are literal, not hyperbolic. These are literal scientific terms in the book that are communist terms. Equity, personal truth. Yes, personal truth is talked about a lot. diversity, inclusion, dismantle and destroy, and your duty.